Hello, I'm Crafty Keela, and before I start, I really want to thank Creaky Blinder for inviting me onto his channel. Challenging Conspiracies is an ongoing series that looks at conspiracies from a sociological perspective. It is important to understand how and why conspiracy theorists put forward their arguments to find out why their ideas sometimes stick. In this brand new episode of Challenging Conspiracies, we will focus on the issue of chemtrails, the mistaken belief that passenger jets are purposely releasing chemicals into the atmosphere to interfere with or control human populations.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Check out that chemtrail. That ain't no contrail, guys. You guys gotta learn the difference here. That's a chemtrail. And look, we've had another one here. And this one's turned into a big ass cloud. Look at him go. Now, for those of you who don't know the difference, a contrail actually will dissipate not long after the plane has let it go. That's called high altitude cold stuff. This is much lower altitude, and you don't see exhaust out of jets either. That, my friends, is what is that again? Chemtrail.
Since the late 90s, conspiracy theories have emerged around the ideas of chemtrails. It was believed that harmful chemicals and heavy metals were being released into the upper atmosphere by passenger jets. The reason behind this illegal spraying are varied, but all proponents of this theory believe it is run and paid for by government bodies and shady organisations to control the population in some way. Today I will take a serious look at some of these claims to show just how ineffective chemtrails would be. From population control to weather modification to chemical warfare, this particular theory is unrealistic faith in all governments having the power to influence human behaviour by poisoning the air that we breathe. The term chemtrail was adapted from the word contrail or condensation trail. This is the process of jet engines, which involves air heating up in the engines to 600 degrees and released alongside water, carbon dioxide and fuel to an external temperature of -60 degrees. This leaves a white trail behind the aircraft. There are images of contrails in the sky as far back as World War II, where bomber planes first became a regular occurrence to the landscape. However, conspiracy theorists think that contrails that linger in the upper atmosphere indicate the presence of harmful chemicals. There are many other creators who can explain the aerodynamics of aircraft much better than I can. So the questions that I want to tackle are the motivations people believe that governments have to initiate spraying programs. Chemtrails as a belief was made popular by radio host Art Bell, a retired Air Force medic, who garnered attention for promoting conspiracies as a regular feature on his show. Bell first came across the idea following a 1996 Air Force University paper into the possibilities of weather modification to be an asset to the US Air Force. This was a hypothetical research paper for students. However, Bell took this report and pushed the idea that spraying programs were already fully effective and in practice throughout the US. In the 80s and 90s, air travel was becoming more affordable and widely used. This in turn led to more complicated flight paths due to the sheer increase of traffic. Bell and his supporters used the increase in aircraft visibility to create a hysteria around the presence of jets in populated areas. There are 4 main reasons conspiracy theorists put forward for chemtrails: weather modification, population control, psychological manipulation, and chemical warfare. The most complicated reason to explain is that of weather modification. The reason is that multiple countries around the world take part in what's known as cloud seeding. This is the only part of any chemtrailers' claims that have any merit, but not for the reasons that they think. Cloud seeding is an experiment that attempts to promote the bonding of molecules in clouds that already exist. Cloud seeding began as early as the 1960s. These experiments are done using bonding chemicals like silver iodide, which is an inert chemical that attracts moisture to promote rainfall. Cloud seeding is not a shady hidden agenda run by the Illuminati, but a very public operation that can be tracked and monitored. The aim of cloud seeding is to maximise the potential for rainfall in a very localised area during times of drought. Cloud seeding, like crop dusting, can't create its own clouds or microclimate. It can't be used as a cover from the sun's radiation, and it certainly can't control people's thoughts or actions. The next reason given is the idea of population control. A few brief points on the reality of governments focusing on how to manage population. Firstly, any chemicals released into the atmosphere would affect all mammals, not just humans. In fact, it would be a heavier concentration for non-human animals, as they are exposed more to the outdoors than people. In recent years, ongoing studies show that in farmed and wild herds of what is traditionally seasonal creatures, these seasons are starting to break down. In goats and sheep, for example, it is fast becoming possible for 2 mating seasons per year instead of 1. This leads to a bigger population, not a smaller one. But back to people. The idea of concentrated chemicals being purposely produced to stop fertilization in humans contradict the morals of most governments in societies today, where women up to the age of 45 are often refused sterilization should they request it, and where birth control methods are often very expensive or outright illegal. There are much better ways of controlling population numbers than spraying the upper atmosphere, most of which is unlikely to meet the target destination with crosswinds and other variables. Following on from this is the idea that these alleged chemicals are designed to modify the behaviour of humans. There is a belief that the chemicals being released creates docile humans. There is one glaringly obvious problem with this. The weather does not control crime figures. If these chemicals made humans docile, there would not be a sustained level of violent crime. There have also, due to lingering economic crashes, been wave after wave of resistance in the streets in many different countries, from the Indignados and Basque independence movements in Spain, to the Arab Spring in 2011, to Occupy Wall Street and the massive surge in voting numbers during the last US presidential election for all candidates, right through to the resistance of a coup in Myanmar. The idea that people are too placid to confront their governments in whatever way that translates is betrayed by the actions of people in every single country. People, it would seem, are as active in monitoring, challenging, or accepting political systems as they always have been. It is also a very ineffective means of thought control, especially in the context of education and advertising, both of which are much more effective in influencing what people think. Last, the idea that chemtrails are a form of bioweapon. It is believed that chemtrails contain toxins like aluminium, barium, and strontium, alongside other materials such as arsenic, titanium, and thorium, making it toxic to humans. Conspiracy theorists throw out chemicals that are not particularly well known to most people for 2 reasons. First, to give themselves an appearance of authority, and secondly, to scaremonger. The aim is to give the impression of danger with random chemicals in the hope that ordinary people don't understand the use of these chemicals. The most egregious claim surrounding these chemicals, similarly to vaccines, is the attempt to link it to autism. Numbers of children on the autistic spectrum have increased over the years, but not due to exposure to suggested chemicals. It's because of an increase of understanding of how the brain works. Autism is not a disease that is inflicted by shady organisations. It is a natural process that must be understood and respected in a diverse society. Again, I ask you to consider the effectiveness of such a tool for the purposes of war. We as humans have constructed the atom bomb and other nuclear weapons. The destruction capability of many nations is enough to wipe out most life on this earth. Any bioweapon released into the atmosphere would need to be so highly concentrated it would not simply leave 2 streaks in the air. Such a density in the atmosphere would be very visible to the naked eye and therefore impossible to keep secret. The last point on using chemicals on one's own population is that government agencies would also be affected by these chemicals. in the same way as the wider population is. This is where the theory becomes laughable. There are no elected representatives showing up to any parliament anywhere in the world in gas masks. So in order for this to even be marginally possible, the ones behind the spraying programs are also being poisoned. I shouldn't have to explain how little sense that makes. In reality, the amount and time frame of contrail visibility depends on the moisture of the air, the altitudes, and the amount of engines that aircraft has. It also depends on the quantity of aircrafts on a given flight path, which may refresh the prominence of contrails. These are the main arguments put forward by chemtrail enthusiasts. Like with any conspiracy, it requires an unbelievable and unwavering faith in the power of many individual governments to pull off an enormous, potentially expensive, and completely uncontrollable scheme, the likes of which are not only impractical, but impossible. It is an attractive idea to have a scapegoat as to why life isn't working the way you want to. But abandoning reason and rationality for fear and paranoia creates a dangerous attitude for society. If we have no faith in the systems that we as humans create and maintain through active participation, then the future of a sustainable society is called into question. This mindset holds humanity back instead of driving us forward. So the next time you come up against these arguments, don't be afraid to scratch beneath the surface and challenge the very reasons people hold these nonsensical beliefs. If you like what you heard in this video, don't be afraid to pop over to my channel and subscribe. A huge thank you to my patrons for voting for this subject to be covered, and again, a massive thank you to Creaky Blinder for giving me this opportunity.